In this video, we're going to complete the total purchase project with a receipt as our output. And if you have not already viewed the part one of this video, you might want to go back and take a look at that and see how we got to this point. We're going to pick up where we left off there, and we're on line 19. And we just looked at the output and noticed that we are still left justified from line 19 down to line 26. And we wanted to use some backslash T's at the very least to tab in, and possibly a backslash N to move everything to a new line. But we're going to start off with adjusting lines 19 to 23. Okay, so you can see that we're getting there. I did decide to go with a backslash N on line 19 in order to get this separated from the heading. But then just two backslash T's on every single line was enough for the tab, and it's actually lined up with the first line of the heading. So it looks pretty good. We still have a couple adjustments to make down here, and I believe I'm going to do a couple tabs to get this all lined up in the center, and then we'll take a look at how we could clean up the dollar formatting. Now I think this is going to wrap up the tabs. I did throw a new line to separate the individual items from the subtotal, tax, and total section. You can see on the left on line 24 where I have backslash N and two backslash T's, but line 25 and line 26 I just went ahead with two backslash T's on each line. So pretty much everything looks pretty centered. And the heading is lined up with the beginning of the items, and that's lined up with the subtotal, 6%, and the total. Now we have to move on to get our dollar amounts to actually look like dollar amounts. So to do that, we're going to have to use the format function. And that's going to be right in this location. So there's two arguments with the format function. The first argument is the value that you want to format, and the second argument is the item specifier. And I have this set up to allow commas inside our output, decimal places, two decimals specifically, that's what the 2 is for, and the F stands for float, so it's going to be used with a float data type. And notice how the entire specifier is in single quotes. Also pay attention to the fact that I do have this extra set of parentheses because format is a function. If you notice the color coding, all of our functions have this purplish color. So make sure that you do not forget about that second parenthesis. So what I have to do now is repeat the process for every other value I want to format. Now with everything formatted, I just want to point out that the type of formatting you do can change. I could change this to a 3, and I'll have 3 decimal places. I could get rid of the comma, and then I don't have a comma when I get to the larger numbers like the thousands and 100,000s. And I could also have an integer data type inside the single quotes. So I would replace this with a D, and that would be my integer formatting. But for the most part, when you format, you're going to be formatting decimals, you're going to be formatting for dollar amounts. So this is pretty much a very common look and the one that you're going to use the most often. Okay, so now it's time to run this and see if there's any other adjustments we have to make. Okay, so here's our output, and I do like the way this looks. We looked at that before. This looks pretty good. Everything's formatted. Notice how I do have my dollar amounts looking like dollar amounts. The dollar sign is right next to the 11. I have 2 decimal places. The long decimal is gone. Okay, and this looks pretty good as well. So the decimal is gone because of the formatting. Okay, we have formatting the 2 decimal places. And the 0 is added on, again, because of the formatting. Okay, we want to format the 2 decimal places. If there's not 2, Python will add that in. And the dollar amount is next to the dollar values because of SEP equals 2 single quotes. Okay, so I believe this looks pretty good. I do want to make one slight adjustment. I would like to have these dollar values maybe tabbed over one more place so that we're a little bit further to the right. So I'm going to make that slight adjustment by putting a tab right before the dollar sign on line 24, line 25, and line 26. Okay, so I think that looks a little bit better. It actually took one \T on line 24, one extra on line 25, and I did test it first with one \T on line 26. It did not get all the way to this point. It got about halfway, so I added another \T before the dollar sign. So on line 26, notice that there's two \T's down at the bottom before the dollar sign. And when you're working with \T, especially, it's trial and error. When you're working with \N, you'll be able to see on the screen all the places I have \N, and it's very predictable. \T, it depends on what sort of values you're starting from and what sort of values you're going to. So I tried \T once, didn't like the way it looked. I added another \T, and we ended up being aligned perfectly. And part of trial and error is checking your output several times to make sure it's perfect, make sure it's the way that you're supposed to have it, make sure it's the way that you like it. So after running it that last time with the extra \T's on line 24, 25, 26, I noticed that our lines 19 to 23, the actual item prices, were a little bit off by slightly, maybe one tab. So I'm going to throw in a \T right before I exit my quotes in each one of these lines. And I believe this really should be it. So trial and error with \T's. You may have to go back and make a couple adjustments. Sometimes it only takes one \T. Sometimes, as you saw on line 26, it takes two. So let's see if this is it, and we'll run it. Okay, so you can see from the output after making those adjustments, so I added a \T right in here from the previous run, and that does line up a lot better with the rest of the dollar amounts. So I'm a lot happier with this output than I was with the previous one. I think this looks very good. And I think the \N and \T's make it look more legible. It looks more professional. And it looks like a real receipt. So again, this was an example using \T, \N, formatting with the item specifier. And I believe we are done. So until next time.